it's been a long time since I've uploaded. I have been having the most insane quarter of my entire life, primarily thanks to a Python programming class that I took, but also a Jane Austen course. I absolutely loved it, but it took up a lot of time because we read all 6 of her novels over the course of 9 weeks. And it was fantastic, it was busy, and I had no time to record anything. I actually did record something last week. And then I was so proud of myself. I was like, I found the time to do this amidst all my homework. And then I went back and watched the video. The camera was focused on the background the entire time that I was talking to the camera. So I sincerely hope that's not happening right now. I'm gonna lose my mind if I go back and watch this and it's blurry. But hello, my name is Michaela. I make videos about books, lifestyle, college life, etc. And today I want to be talking about Jane Austen, which I don't think I've ever really... I've talked about her in some videos, but I've never made a video focused on Jane Austen. So I want to talk about her books and ranking them. Several different ways. There's definitely more than one way to rank these books. I was thinking about this because my stepsister asked me which one my favorite was. I will rank them by favorite at the end of this video, but then I was like, well, this would be a good thing to just make a whole ranking list out of. So anyway, let's begin. I've actually got all 6 books here. Just for a little bit of background on Austen, these are her 6 completed novels, and she does have other works like Lady Susan, The Watsons, her Juvenilia, which she wrote when she was younger, and then also Sanditon, which was going to be a 7th novel, but it was uncompleted very sadly. She died before she could finish it, and it was going to be about kind of hypochondria, I think, set at a health spa sort of thing, and I feel like that would have been really interesting, so I'm really disappointed she never finished her 7th. But we have these 6 at... Oh, am I shaking the camera? So... I want to begin with, if you're a first-time reader of Austen, what is going to be the easiest novel and what is going to be the hardest novel to read? My personal experience reading these might be very different from yours, but I think that Northanger Abbey is by far one of the easiest. It's one of the earlier novels that Austen wrote. The reason I'd say it's the easiest is because the novel kind of follows a cliche of the Gothic novel because it's poking fun at it at times, but also kind of relishing it at times also, I think. You just kind of get that sense of familiarity with Gothic mansion and what is a heroine supposed to be. There's also quite a bit of very relatable anxiety in this. The way that the heroine is treated by her so-called friend, it's a very universal sort of human emotion that the main character, Catherine Morland, goes through. And I just think that because this book is so relatable and fast-paced, and also one of the shortest books too, it's going to be the easiest to read. Next easiest is Pride and Prejudice. This one's longer, but I think that it's easy solely because everyone's familiar with its story. I mean, maybe you're not, I don't want to say everyone, but a lot of people are familiar with it. If you've seen the movie, it automatically makes it easier to read, and definitely Pride and Prejudice is kind of that figurehead of Austen's works. Third, I would say Persuasion. It's a shorter one. There's also a lot of interiority in this. It's a lot about Anne's thoughts and everything. You really just get close to the main character, and also this one's just very interesting because it's so different from Austen's other novels. It's very entangled in its historical context, and also the main character is way more, I don't want to say more old, she's in her late 20s, but it's very old for an Austen heroine. Fourth hardest, Mansfield Park. A lot of people say this one is the hardest. I didn't think it was actually as hard to read, mostly because also it's just very entertaining. Again, other people disagree with that and say that it's probably her driest, but it definitely has darker themes to it than other books. It's not quite as jovial as some of Austen's other works. Fifth, Sense and Sensibility. This one I struggled with understanding because I didn't know anything about it, I think. And when I first read it the very first time, I was like, what is even going on? Because I would get lost in the language, and it's sometimes hard when you do get lost in the language to find yourself back in that plot and to make sure that you're following what's going on. And then the hardest one is Emma, because this is the epitome of genteel English countryside society, and you've got to be able to put yourself in that in order to appreciate and respect all of the characters, from Mr. Elton to Miss Bates to Emma herself and Mr. Woodhouse. It's a very insightful portrait of civil society, and I think that you just have to have a lot of patience with this, and that's why it's the hardest. Okay, now I want to rank the romances. This has nothing to do with plot, but basically which characters are most fun to read and root for and think, oh my gosh, they're finally in love. So at the top of that list, Persuasion. And I don't want to give spoilers in this video, so I'm not going to do that, but obviously every Austen novel ends with a marriage. I think that everyone at least is familiar with that. So even though I'll omit the name of the character who says this I think is the peak form of Austen's romantic writing, is this love letter that happens at the end of Persuasion. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You pierce my soul. I am half agony, half hope. Tell me not that I am too late, that such precious feelings are gone forever. For you alone I think and plan. Have you not seen this? Can you fail to have understood my wishes? I can hardly write. I am every instant hearing something which overpowers me. I have loved none but you. So good. Oh my goodness. Pride and Prejudice is next, and again, I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not going to speak to the names here, but I have a feeling everyone knows this pairing in this book. And, you know, it's kind of the prototype of enemies to lovers, which I just think is, well, actually, maybe it's not. There's a lot of gothic novels that have, like, the men kidnapping women and then the woman falling in love with them. But, I mean, this is definitely very influential on the romance novel, and it's such a fundamental, important character dynamic between the two that everyone knows about. So I think that makes it pretty romantic. For the third one, I did Emma, and that's because of the conversation that happens. Sometimes in Austen's works, the narrator kind of glosses over and summarizes conversations for us and just says, oh, well, you don't need to know about that. All you need to know is that they fell in love and got married. And this one, I think, you get to just see a lot more interaction between the two characters and how they respond to one another. And I think that's what makes it so fun. Fourth most romantic, Sense and Sensibility. You don't see a lot of the pairs. It's more about the sisters than the romantic pairings. That being said, there's a ton of romantic angst in this novel. And because of that angst, it makes the ending all the more worth it. Fifth, Northanger Abbey. Character's younger in this one. It's just not quite as heavy on that romance because of that. And then lastly, I won't say like who Fanny Price ends up with so that I'm not spoiling, but the entire novel she's pining over her cousin. Ugh. Like, this makes it very not romantic to read. I will say that when I read this, in my mind, I pretended that they're not blood cousins. I pretended to myself like, oh, they're just friends. So that way it felt more romantic while reading. It's hard to romanticize cousins. That's just gross. So that definitely takes sixth place. Okay, the most interesting main character, the main heroine of Austen's works, I think is by far Emma Woodhouse. And it's funny because Jane Austen herself was like, oh, I don't think anyone's gonna like Emma. But Emma is so fun because you cringe at her the whole time while reading. That makes her such a great heroine. Number two, Sense and Sensibility, because there are actually kind of two main characters to this. I would say the focal is probably Eleanor Dashwood, but Marianne Dashwood, her sister, is equally important. And because of that sister dynamic, they're kind of this binary of Sense and Sensibility, hence the title. And because of that, it just makes them very interesting as characters. Third, Pride and Prejudice. Elizabeth Bennet, she's Elizabeth Bennet. Enough said. Northanger Abbey I put next. I think that Catherine Morland is a very interesting character to read because of her mistakes that she makes. She's described right, like on the first page, that, oh, she's not really what you would expect out of a heroine, pretty much, and I like her. I think she's sweet. I like all of these. Who am I kidding? When I say that one of them's gonna be ranked last place, I still like the main character. But fifth place is Persuasion, Anne Elliot. She's an amazing character, like super awesome and thoughtful and everything. She's just very quiet, maybe not as exciting as other ones. In that same vein, Fanny Price is also quiet like Anne Elliot of Persuasion. Oops, that's Emma. But Fanny is much more like, oh, please, no, don't put me in the spotlight. I am so shy. I am so afraid of getting attention. And honestly, it gets a little bit annoying. I mean, not annoying enough to dislike Fanny. I still love her, but at times it could grate on me. This next ranking is for academic discussion. So from first to last, which books provoke the most interesting kind of intellectual, philosophical, etc. discussions, and yeah. Number one, Persuasion, because this is the most explicit we get with the historical era, just the way that Austen is describing the naval officers and kind of the role of peace, this period of peace, because what's about to happen, what the characters don't know, is the whole Napoleon business, so it just makes for a really interesting setting. And the only reason that it's slightly above Mansfield Park is Mansfield Park is a bit more vague about it, and Mansfield Park would easily take first if Austen had been a bit more explicit about the slave trade, which is referenced kind of in here. Fanny kind of asks about the slave trade, and her whole family is just deadly silent, like we don't talk about that kind of thing. So this would make for amazing, incredibly interesting historical context if Austen had gone into it a little bit deeper, but then again, it is still very interesting to read into because we know those implications are there. Third, Northanger Abbey, and that's just because of the role of the Gothic novel in it. I think that makes for really interesting parallels and seeing how that operates in the novel. Fourth is Emma. This one is fourth. I don't know if I have anything to say on that. Fifth, Pride and Prejudice. I put this a little bit lower just because I feel like it can almost be overdone. I've just heard so much critical discussion and read so much literary criticism on it. It just feels like it's getting a little bit old analyzing those dynamics. Why would I put this one last? Maybe it's because I feel like they all deserve to be first for this one. Sense and Sensibility. It shouldn't be last. I had to put one last because that's the way that the ranking works. But this is still really great to analyze because of that binary. I think that sometimes it just gets a little bit old because you know, you're constantly going over sense and sensibility and what that means for the characters, and it's not really until the end that the conversation becomes more interesting for sense and sensibility. Okay, book club discussions. This is slightly different from academic discussions because academic discussions focus on more of those historical elements and everything that Austen was writing in. Book club discussions basically means, like, from best to worst, which books are going to provoke a stimulating, like, oh my gosh, can you believe this happened sort of conversation. So in first place, Pride and Prejudice. You can't read Pride and Prejudice without laughing at Mr. Collins, being just totally scathing towards Mr. Darcy at first. The whole Wickham and Lydia thing, there's just so much to talk about this if you're doing a book club. Second, Sense and Sensibility, and I think that's just because there's a lot between the two sisters. So you've got the whole Lucy Steele and Eleanor thing going on, but then you also have the Willoughby, Marianne thing going on, and it's just a lot of fun because they are sisters. Northanger Abbey would be third choice for book club, because again, like I said earlier, it's pretty fast-paced, so I think that one would do well. Fourth is Mansfield Park. There's a lot to talk about here because of the whole cousin thing. That could just spur a whole book club discussion on its own, the whole cousin thing. Oh my goodness. But there are also just the Crawfords who kind of play that bad guy role in Austen's writing, and I think that those are kind of one of the more interesting sets of bad guys. Fifth is Persuasion. Not as much happens in here. Granted, it is a shorter book, but because a lot of it is Anne's interiority, you just have less to kind of flesh out, I think, with a group of people. Last, Emma, because this one is so ripe for academic discussion. I think that there's not as much that happens tangibly in it that you can discuss on an action level, because it's so nuanced and it's more in the subtext than in the explicit. Now, I also want to rank the adaptations, like the film adaptations, and I will say I've seen, for some of these, more than one adaptation, so I just selected for each work my favorite of the adaptations. So at number 1, it's gotta be Pride and Prejudice 2005. That's just a comfort movie. But it is a close number 2. I did Sense and Sensibility. Why are there so many 1995s? 1995 Sense and Sensibility. Oh my gosh, Emma Thompson, Kate Winslet star in this, along with Alan Rickman and someone else that I can't remember right now. Just phenomenal casting. I think that really made this movie incredible. They did such a good job. Third, Clueless. This is maybe a lesser known Austen adaptation because it's modern day. It's not the Regency era sort of vibe at all. But Clueless is just a really fun rom-com. I was actually tempted to put it first, but it doesn't quite reach that peak that Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility do. Fourth, I did Persuasion. And again, this one's quieter, so that's maybe why I didn't place it as high. I still loved this one. This is the 1995 version, by the way. Like I said, they're all 1995. Again, the casting was really good here. It's just less to work with, I think, to be on the screen. Fifth, I did Northanger Abbey. It's the version with Felicity Jones from 2007. I actually just watched this one recently, and it's good. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. I think that it can be a little campy. I don't know. And then lastly, Mansfield Park, 1999. There are so many things changed in this adaptation of the movie. While I can appreciate the way that they emphasized the slave trade, which I think is kind of important to talk about, there were just too many elements of the book that were altered needlessly for the movie. And I was like, why would you change that? Like, you didn't need to switch her brother's role into her sister's role throughout the entire book. Like, it frustrated me. I was just the whole time thinking, like, this is not what happened in the book. This is not how it went down. These are all my rankings. If you've not read all of Austen's works, or maybe not any of them, I hope that this inspires you to go and read some. But yeah, I had such a great time taking the class this quarter, and if you ever had the opportunity to join a book club or a class on Jane Austen, I would highly recommend that you do it. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you have a fantastic week.